skin and
Is it
fingernail.
4 minutes after
Choose it.
7. And I'm going to call the meeting of the Development Review Board for August 16th, 2023 to order. We generally review and approve the minutes of the previous meeting at this point, but because we're going to have some discussion about them, I am going to move that to the end of the agenda so that the applicants don't have to sit around and listen to us talk about whether something is worded one way or another. Okay, but I am going to start with the chair's opening remarks. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Maya Hasagawa, and I am the interim chair because we haven't organized ourselves for this new year yet. So at the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrative decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we are on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. Application materials and written testimony are posted to the town website as received. Hearings may be continued at the board's discretion if materially important documents are received after the submission deadline. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take or consider testimony at its hearing, but will look at evidence from our hearings, the regulations, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decisions of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board. So I strongly encourage everyone to speak up. Steve, are there people that are going to testify that are on Zoom?
We have one member of the public on Zoom. I'm not sure if they'll be testifying.
Well, I need to see them, so. Are you planning to testify?
Yes, for Eve Baker.
Okay. As we are on the record, we are going to ask that you affirm that your testimony will be truthful. So would the applicants and anyone wishing to speak to an application, please affirm the following. People in the room who are going to speak, please stand and you just can affirm, okay? I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury. I say I do. If you're
pointing at her.
Are you pointing at me? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
do. That's all right. I do.
Okay, you can mute yourself now. Again, thank you. Applicants require, I couldn't see her name.
Jamie?
Jamie?
That one?
Yes, Jamie.
Jamie,
Thanks.
okay, thank you. Applicants require a majority of the full board to succeed. That is 4 votes out of 7, and we have a full board present. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for appeal. And I'll just say right here that Brian and I are usually pretty efficient in doing decisions. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have a special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or other town developments will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant and other interested parties. So, say all interested people taking oath. Has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Are there any ex parte communications or disclosures of conflict of interest that anybody on the board would like to make? There are none. Okay. We will take testimony on 2023-84 G&L Enterprise. If you'd like to.
Over here.
Yeah. So, you wanna introduce yourself
My name's Gary Russell.
and can you talk to us about what your application to the board is about?
Asking to subdivide a 1.5 parcel of land located off of Route 9 in West Brattleboro. It's bordering Jeff Martin's property. His daughter and her husband would like to purchase the property to make a homestead there, build a house eventually. So
When I was reading your application, I was confused. What you want to do is create a 1.5 acre parcel.
yes, separate it from there's about 12 acres of land there. So I want to just take a chunk of it that's borders Jeff's house and Route 9 and subdivide it so they can purchase it.
So you'll take the other 11
Yes.
or 10 plus whatever acres. You'll maintain that, okay. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question about that. It looks like on the schematics that, or the site plan, there's the site that you're hoping to carve off here, how would they access it for a driveway? There's an internal road, right?
Right now, there's a right of way for us to use. It goes up from almost, or just down the street from Mama Says building. Goes up, Annie Sparks, Steve Sparks own the driveway. And Mike Kipp, who lives up there, is partial owner of that road too, I think. And then it goes right up to the property. And we're eventually gonna make our own driveway access off Route 9. So that's gonna take another year or two to do, probably.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering about, it didn't look like there would be access from Route 9. But there's a potential there that you could do that.
Yeah, we obtain a curb cut from the state. It's very steep there, so it's gonna take some work to, we're gonna make a road go from Route 9 on an angle, make like a 90-degree turn, then come back across the bank. That way we don't have to use somebody else's driveway. But that's in the future. It's gonna take a while to do that. Right now, we have permission to use the driveway.
A question that I have is, on the town's parcel mapping documents, it shows what you're showing as currently as one parcel. it's showing as two parcels. It shows that there's that little one in the northwest that's owned by Jeffrey Martin, that's 172 Marlboro Road, and it has a house on it. And that's part of, like, has that been acquired? Is this in your site plan? Is that an old?
He's a budding landowner. It's not part of the parcel. There's a stone wall that goes down over the bank. And
I'll see that too in the staff memo. It shows like the drawing looks different.
Well,
Well, that's the
There's-
site plan.
you're talking about the different color at the top.
Well, yeah, see how in the applicant's drawing, there's a little bit that sticks out. Whereas in the memo, the staff memo, it's concave there. Because of parcel. The parcel with the house on it on the staff memo. And that's within the yellow. It doesn't make up all of the yellow that the outlined.
Are you talking about the house?
This
at the
little
bottom?
thing?
No, see how that is there.
Ah,
What, are you talking about this house?
Right, so within the 1.5 acres proposed,
Yeah.
that's including this.
the thing that's labeled 38.
I think that's label 38 that has a house on it.
Hmm.
So I don't know if Maps Online, the town website is outdated and that's been incorporated into this parcel. But he's saying that Jeffrey Martin's in a butter, but yet in this, it's the Jeffrey Martin parcel is part of the whole thing.
Maya, is there any way we can put this up so you can see what they're talking about?
So they did do a border adjustment, and I think Maps in line is behind.
Okay,
So this is incorrect.
It's a little bit off. Yeah.
because all of 38 should be
Okay,
shaded.
what we're talking about is the map on the staff memo.
There you go.
Is different from the sketch plan that was provided. If you see,
The
There-
plat provided is in fact the more accurate and up to date.
yeah,
So with the plat provided, is there a house called 172 Marlboro Road already existing within those yellow, that yellow highlighted boundary? In which case the proposed 1.5 acres already has a house and access. Marlboro Road.
172 is Jeff Martin's house.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Maps Online, the town website shows that, the parcel map shows that. I'll show you what I mean. Can I have him come up to my laptop? We'll see with what you provided, there's that little.
did we
bit that
lose
sticks out
Sam?
there. That perfectly matches up with this. This little extension, sticks out from the concaveness of property here. So.
Do you have
there's
satellite
already
on
a
that?
house on it, 172,
Yeah,
and that's well within, that's like here.
it's just
So
I think the house is over here.
we'll see how this is Route 9, which is.
Yes.
I don't know if I have the.
And that 90-degree angle. It's Route 9, and here's that 90-degree angle.
And what is this? Is this the town's website?
No, that's just Google Maps. I was just
What is
getting
your-
oriented.
Okay,
If you're looking for the
So we,
That
Okay.
parcel
other version.
if you look at the
I think
two
that's Aaron's
maps,
Land,
Okay,
38 says.
sure, and there's already a house on it.
the yellow
And-
highlighted
and
line,
we-
is that the 1.5 acres?
Seems like it would be
Yes,
right
that
there.
is.
No, it's not.
the yellow outline is the 1.5.
Thank you.
I'm trying to
You-
explain to Catherine
Okay,
and
sorry.
Allison, please.
Okay.
That's the current
Right.
plan. If you look at the map that was on
Yes,
the,
I am.
on the front of the staff memo, it
Right.
shows a house. It's labeled parcel 38.
Yep.
And that appears to be part of the 1.5 acres. And that's what we're talking about.
I believe that 38 is Jeff Martin's property. The property next to it is Wayside Fences property, his parents.
So that's 37.
The little small chunk is Jeff Martin's. 172 is his address. That he's the abutting property owner.
So on your map here, you have parcel ID number.
6338. Yeah.
Yeah, ends in 3838.0.
And then Maps Online shows that 38 there is 6338, so that does match up with what you were saying, but the actual visuals and lines that don't seem confusing. And
But Brian, you clarified, right, that that's just, one of these is more accurate.
Yeah.
And
The survey is accurate.
Yeah.
That gray section right there is the actual parcel
Okay.
that I own.
all right, so the Maps Online is inaccurate, so there's no house on the parcel.
No.
Can I,
well, there is a house on 38.
On 38, yeah, but
Right.
not the parcel
Right,
that's.
gotcha. And
that
it's
we're
in the-
considering.
on the map on 38, you said it's not really where it shows on here, or maybe. The house could be on the other side.
town maps aren't always,
I'm gathering.
the best.
Yeah, this has been the third time or something I brought something up.
But I mean, usually I found that Brattleboro is usually pretty good, but pretty good.
Mhm.
I noticed here on this map, it seems as if you have this lot divided up into a number of lots, 1.7, 1.6, 1.7, 1.6. Are those,
that
are those
was just
possible future
Future
subdivisions?
planning, but now the zoning's changing, so I'm not really sure if we're even, probably not even gonna develop the property. I don't know. We may sell it in the future.
Okay, so those
To
are,
consider here.
possible
I just had
build out.
I had my surveyor just kind of put out 1.5 or 1.7, just to see how many lots it would make if we decided to sell it.
Now, that being said, from what I understand, when you were putting this together, the minimum lot size out there was 1.5 acres.
Yes.
Now that has, from what I understand, changed so that it's more like 1.25 acres. It's
5,400 feet,
yeah.
square feet.
So this particular lot that you're proposing does not have to be as big as it is.
I know, but I already made an agreement with the people.
Okay, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? You know,
understand.
if now would be the time to
Change it.
to change it, if
Well, yeah,
you were,
much.
if that was, if
We already
that-
have a verbal agreement, so I can't really change it.
just,
So,
I mean, things
Can you?
have changed
I
here
think you
rather
can take
quickly,
those
just
down,
lately.
The people back up.
So Brian, I have a question. If indeed you wanted to develop these other parcels that aren't quite developed yet, then this would make it a major subdivision and not a minor. And so what we don't want to see is having you come back one at a time and carve these out.
No,
Then
I'm not
Okay.
gonna develop it. That'd be up to somebody else.
Well, we don't have a look back period in the regs, do we? Or,
We do,
oh, I forgot.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's never actually come into play, but we do.
so if this rest of it gets developed, I don't want to see it come in one at a time, so it comes under the minor subdivision heading instead of major.
The cost of infrastructure for this site, putting in sewer and water and a road would be pretty substantial, so.
Yeah.
You would certainly want to do more than piecemeal development. I don't think that would be practical.
So. Yeah,
What?
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So as I understand it, the access to this property is through the Lawton Road, yes?
No.
Well, is it,
There's no road from Lawton Drive.
is there going to be an easement to Lawton?
Well, I don't think we really need to have one, but
Well, do you have a curb, but you don't have currently have a curb cut off of,
yeah, I do.
you do, from the state,
Yes.
okay. Because that doesn't show up on here at all.
It's not on that piece. It's on my property. It's not on the 1.5. It's on right next to it. Actually, the 1.5 borders it.
To the
To the east,
below it,
to the east of it.
to the east. Here.
So the curb cut that you have from the state is near the property line between the 1.5 and the 1.6 acres, is that?
It's right on the edge of the 1.5 to the Brattleboro town side. Which would be east. Right across from Discount Beverage and Mama Says.
Right? So it's, can you show me where it is on?
Yeah.
On this map?
Then I can mark it.
Here.
Yep, that is right.
All right. So
So,
are you, will you, that, I guess that's so the concept here is that would be
the access to that property.
access to this property and that property, but you would be conveying a right of way
For them,
to the new property through that
right?
access.
So what,
Does that look like it?
can you, where is it on this?
Is this it?
It's,
Yeah, what is that? That's what I guess it was too. It's across from Mama Says and Discount Beverage.
Right here, right,
That's where-
okay.
Yeah, but we can't translate that over onto Google Maps.
Well, yeah, I know.
Can you?
Does that look like the curb cut?
that's it.
Great.
This is just for my information. Yeah.
There you go. So that being said, usually when people do subdivisions, it's, I mean, I have found that it's good to have some sort of shared access maintenance agreement of one sort or another, so that
Yes.
anybody that's using an access knows what is expected of them as far as maintaining that portion of the driveway, as it were.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be written into the deed. That they would have access through that curb cut.
And
And
what,
anyone
and what
else
would
that-
be required of them as far as contributing to maintenance of it,
Right.
and how much of it. I mean, different people do it differently, either, everybody that's on it contributes the same. Sometimes it's the people that are closest to the road that do less. I don't know.
At this point in time, it's just gonna be used just for them.
I understand, but the things over time, if you don't have these things set up in the beginning, often
Right. I understand.
they can blow up.
Right, yeah.
And it's much easier to do it ahead of time.
So,
I'm done.
okay. You said something about this lot being difficult to build on.
The driveway is difficult right now because it's steep, but as soon as you hit the top of the bank, it's flat.
So, but the lot itself, the 1.5 acres. There is, where exactly would you be able to build a house?
Probably depth wise, it's probably 100 feet in, I would say.
From Marlboro Road?
Yeah. Yeah, because when you drive by, if you look up the hill where I cleared a spot to bring the power lines in, you can actually see the top of the bank right there. So then it's,
So you would build on top of the bank?
I wouldn't, but when they buy it, yeah, they would.
How much of an elevation difference is there between the top of that bank and Marlboro Road?
Probably about 150 feet, I would say. Well, if you drove up the bank, it's about 150 feet, yeah.
No, I mean, not. How,
Elevation wise?
yeah, high. How high is that bank off the road?
I don't know, but I'd say it's probably at least 75 feet. Different
Really?
elevation, yeah.
That is steep.
But
Sure.
once you get to the top of the hill right there, it's all pretty much flat all the way over to Lawton Drive. It's very slight grade.
So the driveway would come kind of diagonally across the front of this new lot? Is that how it would be planned, or?
Yeah, it would start at the curb cut. Cut towards Jeff Martin's house to the right,
Mhm.
and then make it like a 90 and then come back across. So most of the driveway would be on his lot. On the 1.5 acres. Just the very entrance would be on the land I still own.
And mostly because the state doesn't like to give out a lot of curb cuts.
909.
That was the best spot to get out.
That corner's gonna be fun in the winter.
Yeah.
It's actually, you can see pretty good there. It's not bad.
No, not that corner.
Oh, the corner.
Halfway up.
Yeah.
I've lived on a 12% grade drive road before with a 90-degree corner in the middle of it.
I won't be here. I'll be in Florida.
Yeah. So this will have a private well and a septic system.
Yeah.
Has there been a perk test there?
I had the surveyor look at it because he does septic systems. And he said it'd be no problem because it's very sandy soil, gravel, actually, kind of.
No actual test, just
Not
an
yet,
opinion?
no. Not yet.
Question, are you aware of the term development envelope? Or I don't know if
No.
you spoke with staff at all in the
Development envelope.
creating this application, or?
I spoke with Brian Banning about it.
I don't know, I think that's the only question I have right now on that, and we can maybe discuss that later.
Yeah, usually when we look at a subdivision on which there's planning, I mean, there are future plans to build, whether you're gonna build or the new owner's gonna build. We like to see where on the property certain things are gonna happen, whether it's going to be, I mean, where the
Where
the
driveway might
septic
be.
system, where the driveway would be, where the house potentially would be.
And natural resources
And-
that are
and-
Right,
protected and setbacks.
And
all
we,
that.
and we don't really have that with this application.
Well, that would be up to the new owner to do, not me.
No,
I'm
but
just
we need to
asking to
have
subdivide it.
we need, before we approve the subdivision, we like to know that it could be buildable. I mean, we looked at a subdivision a while back where it was gonna be undeveloped land. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we also wanted to know if somebody in the future wanted to develop that subdivision, that plot of land, whether it would be possible.
Well,
so,
and for, I mean, what Tom talked about, what was the term you used? The
development envelope.
development envelope. In the past, I've always referred to it as a lot of places call it a building envelope, but basically, you show the setback if there are any, if there are any grade differentials on the property that would make it difficult to build on or not suitable for building. If it, you're not going to build a house on that bank. So that you'd kind of draw a line around the pocket that is suitable for construction of a residential house.
Yeah, if you got a map, I'll show you where they would put
No,
that.
I mean, but that usually that kind of thing comes in for with for subdivision approval, as far as trying to say this is a house would be sited within this area.
And my understanding of the requirement for development envelope doesn't necessarily necessitate, hired professionals for wetlands and steep slopes and engineers and perk tests to all contribute to this development envelope. I believe the applicant can do it to the
Yeah,
best
we
of their
just-
ability,
yeah.
and we judge it.
yeah,
So this need not be a high cost onerous thing unless one opts to do it that way. But the requirements for the development envelope are spelled out there in the
Right.
regs, which we could get to you.
right.
So procedurally, you could ask, you could continue this to the next meeting and we can help get a development envelope done. In the past, you actually have done a condition where the development envelope is to be shown on the Mylar, and that would include doing a environmental constraints analysis to make sure that was actually practical. The constraints beyond the slope aren't there aren't any real constraints on this area except for the slope down to the road.
Right.
There's no wetlands or flood hazard area or
Okay, that's good.
so.
No, it sounds pretty high and dry once you get to it.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, it's very buildable land. It's beautiful, actually. It's really very level and the soil's really good up there, so it shouldn't be any issue.
On the sheet that we received, where it's from planning, there were some comments made. I think they're on page 7. It says that the board may wish to ask for additional clarification about future development potential and street connectivity on either or both lots. I think we were right in asking what possible, when Maya brought that up about the development, future development, whether or not, it would have to come before us. And do we want it? It's on that sheet that we got.
Yeah,
It has the map in the front, okay.
Yeah, Nora asked that question. So I think we have,
Well, should we give the answer to Catherine if she didn't catch it? Which was, correct me if I'm incorrect, but basically that he's not planning any future subdivision or developments or.
I'm sorry, he can die tomorrow
Right.
and the whole thing.
No,
goes
not.
on. You know,
we don't want you
that's
to.
not, I don't want you to die, but
Any
it
of
could
us.
happen. and the whole thing gets sold.
No, I know, but
And,
she was
so
asking
that's
about his
okay.
intent, yeah.
I think that's what we're trying to get at when we're talking about the development envelope is what's gonna happen to, the property that's being subdivided. Is that your question, Catherine?
Yes, I mean, I would like to see some kind of a contour map. I think this is great, this nice little picture that they have here, but I would like to see more information.
Okay, I think at this point we have two choices. We can request that you work with the planning department and come back next month with a development envelope sketch that would include where the curb cut is and the contours and the slope. Or we can agree to leave it to be shown on the Mylar that he has to file, which Brian and I would have to sign. So I have no opinion either way, but it seems to me that there's a feeling that we would like to see more of the development envelope. Is that true?
And have that shared driveway access agreement in place for when, what it would be, and for your property to have this shared driveway. And so we know how, whoever's buying it and how that driveway is going to be maintained.
For the development envelope though, or just for clarity, are we just talking about that for the proposed 1.5 acres?
Yes.
Or for the,
Yeah.
I agree.
So the department can work with you and we'll look at the Agency of Natural Resource Atlas that has things like the contours, wetlands, and any other natural constraints. We'll come up with a short memo outlining any constraints and help you define a building envelope if that's the way the board wants to go.
Okay, we have this memo, I don't know what to call it, memo from Mr. Middleton.
Have you seen the memo, sir? Or the letter from?
Here.
It's couple of copies for me.
I think that it sounds as if the board wants to go with getting more concrete information. And if that's the case, then probably it should include responses to these concerns.
Mr. Middleton came into the office late last week and he has been trying to get in touch with you and like to talk this over if you're willing to talk to him. He didn't have your contact information
Yeah, sure.
and he wanted to catch up.
Thanks. Here, you can have your own
Yeah.
copy. So can I have a motion?
Brian?
To,
See if any of the members of the public want to weigh
Oh.
in before.
I forgot. Are there any members of the public who want to speak to this application? You do, okay. Can you stand?
Harry Heilman, I'm from.
Can you stand at the microphone and identify yourself and?
My name is Harry Heilman, and I'm from 109 Lawton Drive. And my only concern is that access to this new subdivision is not gonna come from Lawton Drive. And if in the future that it is, somehow gets put in that they would use it, then they would have to be part of our association and bear the cost of maintenance for the road, snow plowing, upkeep, grading, whatever, from the point of Spinos down to that lot, however it would go through the rest of that subdivision. Somebody has to be responsible for that.
Can I speak to that? Is on your site plan here, it looks as if you have drawn out a road or access from Lawton Drive to access the rest of the land. What is the land currently used for?
The rest of the 12 acres is just wooded right now.
Is it logged?
What
Is
it was, pardon me?
Has it been logged? Has it been
No,
nothing? Just
woods.
just sitting there?
Yeah.
And so I guess that would be my question to you. Have you noticed any ill effect by, has there been traffic out onto this parcels through Lawton Road through your association? Okay. And it's, but at some time, not necessarily you, but
If
somebody
was to-
that owns this land might develop this into multiple lots out here.
Yes, they very well could, and there is a 50-foot right of way there to access that land. I don't have any plans on doing that. If we sell the property, somebody in the future probably will have,
Yep.
so.
That may
As
very
far
well
as
be
what
why
we're
they
doing-
buy it.
Huh?
That may very well be why they would buy it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just let me, to answer your concern, we generally require, if anybody's gonna put in access, that there be, and it goes by or through or connects to anybody else's property. We generally require that there be some kind of shared maintenance agreement as to how the road will be maintained and the cost sharing and all of that. So if at some point in the future, somebody comes in with a plan to do that road, that would be part of the agreement.
The other thing I just wanted to say is that the rest of that land that in the future would be subdivided, also included in that 12 acres, less the 1.5 acres, is all of Lawton Drive Road is under that same parcel. The whole circle at Lawton Drive, all the piping underneath, the storm drains, the water line, storage lines, everything up there on Lawton Drive is all included in that same parcel to be subdivided.
Well, if anybody ever comes, if anybody ever comes with a plan to subdivide and to develop that land, that's one thing that will be taken into consideration. You can be sure of that. So is there any more discussion from members of the board or members of the public? Anybody online, Steve? Okay, see, what would the motion be? The motion would be to continue 2023-84 to, there used to be a calendar. When's the September meeting?
Metal's not down.
20,
Is it the 20th?
3rd by 6th, yeah.
To Is that the meeting date?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
20th.
the 20th. Okay. To continue 2023-84 to September 20th to allow time to do a more complete building and development envelope. Somebody make that motion.
I would make that motion.
Okay,
Including the driveway agreement.
yes,
Yeah,
including consideration of the driveway agreement.
I'll second.
A question I have about that is, are we asking him to produce that shared driveway agreement before we're even granting a written, approval? Or should we say should we save that to the next meeting and put it as a condition if we give approval?
It could be a condition.
So we're striking that.
it can be a condition. It might be appropriate to have some sort of a draft.
Yeah.
Would be just
Right.
put some thought into it and come up with a proposal, work with Brian as far as coming up or somebody. And that might be helpful.
Yeah, a draft proposal and a more complete development envelope. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Okay, I will ask people to vote. Dan,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Jordan,
Aye.
Nora,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
And I will vote aye. So that is 7-0. Okay, so you'll just work with Brian and we'll see you next month.
Okay, thank you.
They don't know what alternates do, and they wonder why we was didn't go.
Okay, we will move to 2023-91. Eve Judith Baker. Do we have anybody that's gonna present?
I'll be presenting.
Okay. And you identify yourself, please?
My name is Jamie Durham. I run a construction company called Owl's Head Builders with Jethro Eaton, whose name is on the application.
Okay. And could you talk to us about your proposal?
Sure. So we've been hired to do a renovation and addition on Eve Baker's house at 68 Overlook Drive in Brattleboro. As part of this project, she's asked us to come up with a solution for her car. She'd like to have her car undercover. So as we were looking at the site and trying to find a place for a garage, we realized that in order for her to have a space where she can have her car undercover but not have to walk across her driveway, she would have to have it right in front of her house. We did originally spec a garage that was a bit farther away from her house that was in compliance with the setback. And when we looked at it with her, we realized that would cause some unnecessary hardship for her. She has a really aggressive form of cancer that requires a lot of treatment, and she sort of has a difficult future ahead of her. And so we're sort of building her dream space for her to enjoy the remaining years of her life. And part of this is to help give her access to her car. She currently has no garage or carport. What we were concerned with was having to shovel to get to her car. So the solution was to put the carport directly in front of her house, and then we'll have a vestibule that's covered that leads directly into the covered carport. So when she's going to her treatments, which she has to do often sometimes, or just doing any sort of daily activity, it's not going to have to be a concern for her, as she's going to have limited mobility and ongoing health issues for the rest of her life.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, the 16-foot by 14-foot addition is, why is that a part of this?
It's just the whole plan. I think the directions in the application said to explain the project, so I just gave a very brief overview of our scope of work.
Mhm.
So that's all. That's not, the variance is not regarding that.
Okay.
This carport, does it have a basement?
No,
Okay, so the basement is for the addition. Okay, that's.
yes, sorry.
Actually, my question.
Okay.
One of them.
On the map that I have in front of me from, on the memorandum, it's highlighted out. Is that the area where the house and the garage are going to be?
On the map that you have,
It's 47.8, it's 1.56 acres.
so you're looking at the map. I guess I'm not sure what map you're looking at.
Well,
Area,
I'm looking at something that we got, we got from, the planning department.
And it's just,
It's 68 Overlook Drive.
yep. And so I'm
Yep.
sorry, what's the question? I'm sorry.
Well, the question is that there's a highlighted part that's blacked out. I want to know if that is, what that is.
I guess I have
represents.
to see the map, because I'm not sure what,
Steve,
thank
do you
you.
have
Thank you.
right there?
Oh, no, I mean, that's her whole property. That existing, building there is her current house.
Oh, okay, because that
Yep.
doesn't show up on mine. The little boxes there, they don't show up on what we got. Okay.
Oh, they show up on mine.
Maybe Catherine's talking about the proposed new boxes.
No,
Yeah.
she's talking about these
She just said
boxes.
yes.
The little boxes that are right above the 47.7.
Yeah, it's on this.
Yeah.
On,
Well, mine is
on
blacked
that.
out. I can't see it. That's why I asked.
Oh, okay.
Kind of related to that, it would have helped me, I don't know if it would change my decision, but help me understand the project if there were little, outlines at least of. From this aerial view that the applicant gave, showing what's being proposed. But. I guess,
Which aerial view? That's from.
but I guess, the matter at hand is just the 40-foot setback and that this will encroach into it.
Yeah.
And whether so. I suppose
No.
a visual isn't actually needed, at all, in some sense.
I guess the question, and I don't, you might have a better feel for it, Brian. With the new zoning, is any of this setbacks in this area affected in any way?
No. However, Steve was looking at all the setback requirements, including for accessory structures, and I had thought that ADA access only applied to ramps and similar, but it's actually very broadly defined. Any structure for ADA access is not subject to setbacks.
Oh,
Well, then we don't need to hear this.
It's been warned for variance, so you
Okay.
should make a quick determination of whether it meets any of those criteria. And if you do find that this is an ADA structure, which I think is reasonable, you could make that finding and you could direct me to approve it administratively. But as far as the variance, you should.
Not granting a variance, but basically saying that it would meet the current zoning because it's an ADA structure, not a.
Variance request.
If the
Not
board
variance
thought-
request.
Yes, if the board agreed with that interpretation, that it is in fact an ADA structure and necessary for that, then I could approve it administratively. But of course, if it doesn't meet the requirements for the variance, you would still deny that.
Yeah, it seems like the variance is a tough
Yeah,
road for us to
It
approve.
would be really hard.
A question I have is, what's the, do we have a rubric or criteria for what's defined as an ADA structure?
It's
Is it
very
state law?
broad.
Is
I
it-
don't know, Jordan maybe can talk.
I can't, I looked into this somewhat, trying to look at other examples. I couldn't really find anything that other zoning boards had looked at in terms of giving a health variance.
So a question about that, if it is an ADA structure and say this property is sold, would this have to be taken down?
I think you're really looking at the current ownership and the proposed use, and it's intended to be built as a permanent structure, so it would continue to exist unless it would continue to exist,
Okay.
even if it no longer functioned that way.
Likely not.
Likely not, right?
But, you know, this is one of those discretionary findings that the board really has to make, and I can't make that type of finding. It's really a matter of your judgment of whether this is functionally going to be an ADA access structure.
And just as a point of clarification, our regulations actually only even say accessibility structure. And don't connect that explicitly to the Americans with Disability Act, so it actually would be, I think, even a lower barrier to making that finding if that was the correct finding that was made.
So this carport, it's not a garage, as I understand it, correct?
No,
It's just a roof.
and
It's a
post and,
a
yeah,
post.
yeah.
On a slab.
Yeah, or on the existing driveway, and we'll just put in cement posts. We'll just grade the driveway a little bit. That's where she currently parks her cars.
And you can see that here.
Yeah,
You can see the
Yeah.
car.
yeah.
So I'm gonna ask, is there other entrances into the house, and was it considered having this attached to one of the other entrances?
She has an entrance in the back, but the slope of the house is on a slope, like the back of the house is below the front of the house.
Yeah.
So when we were originally looking at doing the garage over on the side of the house, it was gonna cost just an exorbitant amount of money with the fill to get it up to grade where she could drive it and park. So in order to have a garage around back, we'd have to like build, I guess we'd have to build a road to go around the back of her house, and then she has an entrance in the basement, and then she has another entrance on the back of the house. She has an entrance in the basement, an entrance on the second floor porch.
Mhm.
So it would really have to be a lot of site work.
So this is,
Um,
this house is pretty much kind of situated on the top of a little knoll, is that how it is?
Yeah, but yeah, kind of like a knoll, and then
Thank
the
you.
road continues up a
Yeah.
little bit.
Could you tell us which side of the
Yeah,
house the proposed 16-foot by 14-foot addition will be on?
You mean in terms of the like northwest?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Mhm.
Just give me a second, because my south is this way. It's on the south side of the house. The new living room is on the south side of the house.
Where some of the deck is?
Right, we're taking out, our scope is to remove the entire current deck, and we're treating it as two sections. The 12 by 12 section that juts out of the back of the house is becoming a screened in porch, and the 12 by 24 section is now becoming a 12 by 12 deck. So, and then there's going to be this addition where that other chunk of deck on the south side was. It's going to be addition basement.
Comparatively, this garage, if you want to call it that, is a small portion of the project, it seems.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's the only part that's non-compliant.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's an entry in the house, there's a vestibule. And then the proposal is to go directly from the vestibule into the carport.
The vestibule's
Yes.
new.
And the vestibule will be new.
Yes.
And how, I can't tell on this, I can't read this, make it out. How deep is the vestibule? There's a dimension on it, but
It's 6 by 8, 6 deep, 6 feet deep.
so it's 8 feet wide and 6 feet deep. So the vestibule itself is closer to the road than what the setback,
Yeah. But not much.
but by a few feet.
Yeah, but
Okay, I'm just, or 2.5 feet.
yeah.
Well, actually, it's 6, I see. That's interesting.
I mean, I'm just trying to add things up, that's all.
Okay,
Right now, from what I can see, your current setback is about 43.5 feet.
right, and we're, oh, I see, right, so 2.5 of the feet are for the vestibule.
Right, so 2.5 feet of the vestibule and the 18 feet,
2 bay.
18 feet of the carport are both. So that would be 20.5 feet worth of.
Right,
And so that's enough space to be a 2 bay carport, right? For 2 vehicles.
right, and she wants a place to put her trash, so we're gonna put a little trash shed for her under there. So she doesn't have to, I guess right now she's tying the trash bins to her porch because they blow away, so she just wants some extra storage space under there.
A sort of a point of order. Since this, we're being asked to consider a variance.
We're being asked to consider a variance. We're also, if we determine that this is an ADA structure, then we can approve it without granting a variance.
I guess that's my question. We can deny the variance, but how far in this meeting, at this time, can we go towards other remedies that clearly are needed?
I think.
We can.
Okay, I just want to make sure that.
Well, just procedurally, I think that's really on point. If you guys can make a finding on whether this is in fact an accessibility structure, and that's something that I can administratively approve, that's
Then we
out of the
don't have
way.
to-
And
Then we
Then
don't
the
have to do
variance
a variance.
disappears.
Right.
Then the
You
variance
still have
request
to make-
disappears because it's moved.
you still have to make those findings just because it's
Yeah,
warned
we
for
just
that.
have to find that the variance is not necessary.
Yeah,
If we determine.
I think that in a
that we
roundabout
think
way,
this-
that totally answers.
If we think that this is a structure for accessibility. So,
In my mind, it seems to qualify, especially given what Stephen says about the looser definitions, if it's not tied to ADA, correct?
Yeah, and the category in the accessory structures table, it lists 2 things and then says other accessory structures, and the 2 things are fire escapes and handicap ramps. So it's a pretty broad range of access structures.
I would agree with that.
yeah.
What,
Yeah, I wonder though if, I almost feel like this is, I'm not saying that this is happening at all with this application, but this seems like a way for people in the future. You know what I'm getting at? To flaunt the setbacks with disability not being defined and whatnot. Obviously, everyone's, we expect everyone acting in good faith and honest.
well,
But-
this
but-
is under penalty of perjury,
Right. But then the other concern, I don't necessarily need a response to that, or I'm not looking for one, but the other thought I have is, what would be the limit to this accessibility structure? What if, and I know they're not, but it was a 4-bay garage? Or a huge addition to the house that was all on single floor plan because they can't walk upstairs. Like,
I think it's a
Could we
case by
just grant
case
anything?
basis. I
Because-
mean, for this one, for accessible carports, I think they probably would need to be larger.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say what, if a four bay garage might be very reasonable for someone
Yeah.
with extreme needs.
I mean, I suppose as long as we're convinced, that's what the determination, we're defining what's an accessibility structure.
So that's a great question. Maybe we can punt back up to the select board or something.
Or planning commission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ryan.
you guys figure it
Deal
out.
with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ryan has something.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you guys are here, and because this is really a judgment call and it's at your discretion. So if this seems like reasonably on its face, it's an accessory structure, then you can make that determination. As a zoning administrator, it's not clear cut. It would be a abuse of discretion if I approve something like this. But it's well within your discretion. And if something else came back another time and you thought, no, this is excessive, you could say no.
Dan,
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in one extra piece of consideration and connected to something the applicant said. I think the basic determination is whether this is a permanent structure or not. And if it's a permanent structure, I believe, of course, there are permanent structures that are under ADA, but it's affixed to the ground, and it's then, as I think was alluded to, it wouldn't be something that would be removed when ADA isn't an issue. And I just wanted to connect to something the applicant said, which is the expense of the project. I don't think you'd put hundreds of thousands of dollars into something that's a non-permanent structure. I know there's more to it than just the carport, but I just want to, since that piece is included in the application, the expense of the project, I think realistically, we're talking about a permanent structure, but that's just my read.
Dan,
Mm-hmm.
would it, going down that route, would it seem to be appropriate to add some sort of condition saying that this can't be co-opted and turned into living space at some point in time in the future type of deal?
Yeah, and that's
I mean, because this is something that's specifically what we're talking about is approving this as a an ADA type of thing. And if once you get something that's there and, like you say, permanent, people have a habit, future owners might decide that, geez, I could double my living space by pouring a floor in there and sticking up some walls.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and even regardless of, you're right, like you could enclose the carport is what you're getting at, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, turn it into an accessory apartment. Who knows?
Right. So regardless of that, though, I think even the types of piers that she's talking about, I believe, if I understood the applicant correctly, you're talking about piers that are probably 4 feet in the ground, and
Right, we have to make sure it's not gonna.
Yeah.
It's a good.
so it's a permanent. I mean, I am sympathetic, believe me, about the possibility of the ADA, the accessibility concerns, but I think the application for a variance is probably the appropriate. I think that's the question. That's the appropriate question, given it would be permanent.
I guess that would.
We live in the town of Brattleboro that probably has a very huge senior population at one point in time who are going to look for a place that is available that can be ADA. I am an ADA person. I cannot come to your meetings in person. And I'm telling you that this does not necessarily mean that house is going to be turned into something else. Who knows? we may be giving something that is well needed in this town. Is more ADA compliance to a lot of places, including homes. Sorry.
No, I was just wondering, can we say that it's can only be a carport?
Yes.
Like forever?
Yeah,
Or until they come back to. the
Well,
board,
but you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah, no, yeah, I think
It's,
that's fine.
I mean, because that would be, in my mind anyways, would be somewhat critical to how we might decide to approve it.
You can definitely do that.
I don't personally think that the question of whether or not it's a permanent structure or not has any.
Oh, no, I
relevance.
think it is a permanent structure.
Yeah, but I don't see how it matters.
Well,
That's all.
no, but I mean, you can say that it can't be turned into living space.
I guess so. I'm not sure I would vote for that portion of a motion, but I'm certainly in favor of enabling them to move forward.
Right, but
Either
I mean,
way.
the problem with, I mean, I guess.
I think what I'm trying to say is that incorporating a thing that, well, someday this might happen is a logical fallacy, because that's a slippery slope argument, essentially.
Or, well, believe me.
And I don't think that's what it's within our purview to decide here. We have an applicant who has a need, and that's what they're bringing before us.
I disagree. I think it is in our purview to decide that. Because a lot of what we do is what could happen.
Mhm. I'm just looking at the site. I'm looking at the
Yep,
whole
no,
picture.
Gotcha.
If this existed somewhere else, I might definitely agree with you on that point, but
Okay.
to me, I think we're all heading basically in the same direction, but I think it's too much to
well,
ask that it
one,
only be used as a carport.
we could put a condition on that goes with the property, I believe,
Mhm.
that if there were to be any changes, that it would have to come back to the board. Can we do that?
So what you're proposing, what you might find is that this is an accessibility structure. And if it were to convert it to some other use, I think that would no longer be the case. So if you want to put some condition to ensure that it remains an accessibility structure under this ownership or future ownership, I think that speaks directly to your finding that, yes, this is an accessibility structure and it can be approved on that basis.
Okay.
Just if nothing else, for possible future owners to be informed.
Yes.
I mean, just so that it goes with the deed, so to speak.
Yes, it would come up in a title search.
Yes. But you know,
Yep.
people, when you're
So-
looking at buying something, you sort of say, oh, that's nice. And
It'd be my daughter's bedroom,
Yeah.
whatever.
it's, you know,
Are we ready?
Somebody make a motion. Catherine's. Catherine, right?
Yep, there she is.
Okay, so the motion would be that we find the proposed carport to
Vestibule.
be, and vestibule, to be an accessibility structure.
Mhm.
Is that the right terminology?
Yep.
And that we approve it on that basis, which means that, if anybody, I don't know how to word this, is that enough to prevent somebody from converting it to something else? If we say that we're approving this structure for accessibility purposes only?
So, again, it's been warned for a variance, so you have to make those findings and deny that if you think if it is in fact something that should be denied. You have to hit all of those criteria. So if it does not qualify for one of those, then the variance is something you
So
don't.
we have to deny the variance and approve it as an
Make that finding, and then it's something where I could do administrative approval, because we haven't really warned that, but once you make that finding, then that
Okay,
is
so
something
two
that I can do. And then no conversion to living space in future without
be a
board
condition.
review could be a condition.
So I guess I would put a proposal that we deny the variance.
We have to vote on that first, I think.
Correct. That we deny the variance due to the fact that the house is usable without this.
Yes. Yes.
As
It doesn't meet
as
the-
simple as
It
possible.
doesn't meet the criteria for a
Right.
variance. Because the house is usable as is.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I guess that would be my motion.
so Michael's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
May I ask that the motion be restated? Just for clarity, I'm sorry, but I'm not completely clear.
The motion is to deny the variance because the property is usable without the changes. Okay,
Yes,
So, so does that mean that at that point in time, we do that with the variance and we come back and say that it's ADA?
we have to do two separate motions.
Okay, all right.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we deny the variance. Dan,
aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Jordan,
Aye.
Nora,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and I will vote aye.
Can I
Okay.
ask something? Sorry.
Yes,
Who was the second? Who
Laura.
seconded? Oh, okay, I didn't hear it. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
okay. The second motion will be that we find the proposed structure to be for accessibility purposes. And
Administrative control.
and it can be administratively approved. And how do we say, do I say we're approving it only for the purposes of accessibility?
So I'm suggesting this condition, no conversion to living space in future without board review.
With that condition. Okay, so we're gonna approve it as an accessibility structure, which can be administratively approved. With the condition that it cannot be converted to any other use without board approval.
I would make that motion.
Dan, you have your hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry to belabor the point. Before we get to the motion, if you don't mind, I'm just, I guess the question really is for all of you, including Brian. I don't believe I haven't looked back, of course, at the recording, but I don't believe the applicant has actually requested this. Is that what our understanding, though? That the request is that this is an ADA accessibility issue?
The applicant requested a variance.
Yes, I'm just saying,
Which we are denied, which we just voted to deny.
understood. I just don't know where, I haven't reviewed what we've just discussed. I may have missed it, but I know the applicant described the situation, and it at some point we jumped to the idea that this is an ADA issue, and I'm just trying to clarify really why it is that we're then making this vote.
If it's accessible, if this structure, proposed structure is for accessibility reasons,
Mhm.
then it's my understanding that it can be built without a variance. We can, even though it doesn't meet the setback requirements, because it's an accessible a structure for accessibility. And
Okay.
so if we make a finding that it's a structure for accessibility and accessibility only, then we can approve the structure. We can have the structure administratively approved.
We can invite them to.
Well,
They can
I
They
think
can go to Brian and say, this is an accessibility structure. And Brian can say, yes,
Yeah, I think it's a
So-
clarification for Brian.
yeah.
They're gonna have to reapply.
They are gonna have, right, that's my question
Well,
essentially.
they don't have to reapply, they have
I
to
need to
talk.
reapply.
No, they don't have to
Or they
reapply.
have to request for the administrative approval.
They can get a
It doesn't
get
fall
a
under
permit
the small
administrative.
structure exemption.
Brian
So-
explained that this is how we could get around.
No, you're not really getting around anything, you know, this is something that's allowed by the regulations. Should you direct me that it's an accessory structure? That's not a determination I wanted to make by myself, because I think that's a discretionary one, and that's the proper role of the board, is to come together and make a citizen board judgment. If you make that judgment, then this is an approval I can make administratively. So the board doesn't have to take any additional action. I can just take the application as submitted and say these structures can be permitted, and I will issue a permit. And then why we're doing this is they made the variance request specifically for accessibility, so the owner could continue using the property and make use of it without burden. The only approach seemed to be variance, but Steve, when he did his analysis for the staff memo, found in fact that accessibility setbacks would allow for this, and that reasonably could fall under that should the board make that finding. So that's how we got from variance to accessibility structure, is Steve's analysis and staff memo.
Yep, okay, Dan,
Yes, so we do need to vote on the motion that we allow the applicant to request administrative review from Brian. Is that basically the idea?
no, we have to find that it's a structure being built for accessibility purposes.
Okay.
And therefore it can be administratively approved.
Sure.
And we can add the condition that if it is going to be used for any other purpose in the future, it has to come before the board.
I think I can add a little clarification because I misspoke earlier. I think the applicant already, they did a two-part application, right?
Yeah, and they already
They
talked
did the
about
zoning permit,
accessibility.
which is required with everything, and then the variance is the secondary element. We're kind of
Right.
pulling away the variance element. They still already applied.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
did.
so that I
Yeah.
misspoke earlier,
Yeah, yeah.
misthought,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's already there and we're gonna potentially give Brian the ability, well, I can't vote.
And all we're really doing
Mm-hmm.
is saying, we're coming out and saying, we viewed this, we're viewing the proposed carport as a accessibility structure
Making the decision
rather
for
than
Brian.
a normal building,
Carport.
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 which we probably wouldn't approve
Correct,
because we couldn't grant a variance.
correct.
Does that make sense to you, Dan? Okay. All right, what was the motion?
We already had it, first and seconded.
Yes,
Who seconded?
I did.
Nora, it was Nora and
Michael,
Michael.
Or wasn't that the first motion?
No,
I
they made the second
one too.
motion also.
we're chatting tonight.
Yes,
Long- we're
okay,
Taking the long road around.
all right. So all in favor of the motion to find it an accessibility structure, and giving the zoning administrator the approval power with the additional
Condition.
condition that any conversion to something other than an accessibility structure would have to come before the board. Okay. Dan. We're voting now.
Aye. Thanks.
Catherine,
Aye.
Jordan,
Aye.
Nora,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye,
and I will vote aye. Okay, so are you clear about what you need to do to go forward?
Are you talking to me?
Yes,
I think so. I'll just be in contact with Brian.
yes,
Right.
exactly.
he's the man.
Okay,
Thanks, Brian.
very good.
Okay, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, now we have administrative business. First, we need to, look at the minutes from June 21st. And, there was a question raised by Tom about the, about the minutes. And he circulated a memo about it. And has everybody had a chance to look at it?
I'm afraid I didn't look at it.
Could you refresh our memory, Tom?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in the memo, I'll just say that the second part of it that I separated with a space there is more of like explaining some context in my own mind of why it was really significant for me at the time and why I voted that way. But I think but really to the point is the first section of wording. And so what it is that the draft minutes say that these three components of the site plan, landscaping, signage, and lighting may be modified in conformance with the regs and submitted to the zoning administrator for approval. But what was actually voted on was that the signage, lighting, and final landscape plan can be approved administratively. And I view these as very different. And I felt that way at the time, that voting on the wording we actually voted on is very different than how it was recorded. The drafts wording for that these things may be modified means that the entire site plan was approved and that these things may be modified, like they've already been accepted, they may be changed. It gives the applicant simply the option of modifying those three components and getting them approved by the zoning administrator instead of having to come back to us. It allows the applicant to choose to do nothing else and be finished with applying for the approval. But by saying that these things, and especially with the word final landscape plan, but that they can be approved administratively, it means that the DRB approved all the site plan except for those three components. But yes, they could get that approval also from the zoning administrator. And remember that during the application, like in the material, they said, we don't have anything for you on signage and lighting. And then we felt like there was enough concern of members of the public with trees and lighting, and that's why we added the landscaping element. So in my mind, we didn't just approve everything and say, oh, if the applicant wants to make some changes out of good faith, they can make modifications, get approval from the zoning administrator. We didn't finish approving 3 of the elements of the plan. They still had some work to do. And I hoped personally that this, that the approval would be contingent upon, applicants' concerns and, but still the end result within conformance of the regs. There's wiggle room in the regs, like a fence can be 6 feet or 8 feet, that is all conforming. But anyway, to me, I mean, I hope other people understand this too, as I understand it, but to me, there's a big difference there. So
Tom, to just jump in, the minutes are just a brief take on what the meeting, but what's really binding is the decision as written and then signed. And the decision has findings, and one of the findings is that signage wasn't approved and it needs to be submitted and administratively approved. And similarly, lighting wasn't submitted and that also needs to be administratively approved for conformance. Landscaping, that there was no, it seemed like that was a conforming landscaping plan. So that finding just stated that. So they just can't come up with anything or do nothing. They have to actually address the findings. And the finding was that the signage didn't conform because it wasn't submitted and the lighting plan didn't conform because it wasn't submitted.
And I believe that the decision also talked about the final landscaping plan could be administratively approved.
Give them the flexibility to meet the needs of the neighbors if they chose to do so, which incidentally they did.
Would it be feasible to change the word may to shall in the minute?
No.
I mean, that would get closer to aligning with what we actually said in the motion, in my opinion.
That's what I was just.
Brian saying no, yeah. And as far as like the minutes not having much control, I mean, that's the extent of the control I have. I'm not the one who signs the written decision. When Brian shared the minutes a couple days after the meeting, I reviewed it within 3 days and responded. I mean, I did what I could to to review and try to make it accurate.
Well,
I understand the decisions. I mean, it's not going to change anything, but I mean, I accept maybe an appeal, but just change the wording in the minutes, actually what was said. I guess it's a matter of principle at this point. It's not going to change anything tangibly.
We haven't approved the minutes.
No, but the decision has already been signed with conditions and
right.
Maya has made that review and she felt that it was accurate. And you guys don't actually have the authority to obligate people to modify a plan that conforms. In this case, the landscaping plan did conform. Nobody offered any evidence that it did not. So you could not make a finding that it was not.
No, I was
then or them to change it.
Thinking more of the lighting and signage.
Right. Those they have, they're obligated to change those because the findings say that they're non-conforming.
But that was the part that I was wondering if there was any way.
So if we deleted landscaping from that sentence and said signage and lighting may be modified in conformance with the regulations and submitted to the zoning administrator for approval, would that satisfy you?
I mean, I just want what's in the recording to be written down. It was what I voted on. And we can all, interpret the words differently and their significance, but I mean, I voted on something and I have it quoted right there.
You're saying that you were under the impression that you voted yes, I assume, to us requiring certain landscaping.
He
No.
voted, he's saying he voted for it to say, the signage, lighting, and final landscape plan can be approved administratively.
Yeah, meaning that they weren't done with all three of those components. They had to do something regarding all three of them. And submit them to the zoning administrator.
Isn't that essentially what's happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. They had a conforming landscaping plan and you could not tell them to modify it. But there's no reason we can't break it down to clarify it. You're entirely right. The signage and the lighting plan do not conform and they must or shall modify it and have it reviewed and approved. You can't say that with the landscaping. You can say they may, because again, it's conforming and nobody said otherwise. But, you know, in this case, they wanted to meet the needs of the neighbors, and they modified it to suit. And then I approved that modification. But the minutes can break those two apart because they're different situations, and that would clarify and be consistent with the signed decision.
That's a good suggestion, I think, because it actually reflects the spirit of the meeting and how I remember it going down.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that a better alternative to satisfy you? Either that or propose something and we'll probably vote no.
Yeah. Well, I already kind of did.
Either way, we'll be done with it.
I read the room, yeah.
So I think we should say the signage and lighting shall be submitted
And approved.
to the zoning administrator for approval. The final landscaping plan.
Maybe changed to
Well,
reflect.
they didn't submit a final landscaping plan to us to approve. We usually have the final landscaping plan approved administratively. I mean,
Often we do.
So, I'm trying to figure out how to separate those two.
The landscaping plan they approved was complete and it was conforming. It was just really giving them flexibility to change it to
Yeah.
the neighbors.
So, but they submitted a final plan, right?
Yeah.
So
And
usually,
that final plan varied from what we saw.
It was a conforming plan, but they changed some of the elements, you know, as the neighbors suggested they do.
Which was nice.
yeah, so we usually say the final landscaping plan can be submitted to be approved administratively, and in this case, they didn't have any signage or lighting plan that they gave us. Is that right? I'm trying to remember. I think that's true.
Yeah.
That's correct. And
So the signage and lighting plan
Shall be.
shall be submitted to the zoning administrator for approval. Period.
And then I think to speak to Tom's larger point, if, as we do this, as we craft a motion, we go through what conditions are going to be on it. I draft them, read them back to the board to ensure that we all have a common understanding of what you folks are voting on. You can direct me to change them before a vote takes place, and then we can proceed. Just, you know, break it down a little bit more so everybody's on the same
Yeah,
page.
in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if, you know, clearly there was, you know, that wasn't great that you didn't have a full understanding or we didn't have a full consensus on what the conditions were, and we can avoid that in the future.
If Brian's up for that role, that would help, especially in those situations where like a motion is made, then discussion ensues, and then somebody says, let's continue with the motion. It's great to have a reminder so that everyone's.
And
on
I'm
the same
trying to
page.
remember what
Right,
we said.
because you never remember exact wording.
Yeah.
It requires a little bit of.
She.
Yeah.
Even when we do that, there might be a little cleanup at it, but it shouldn't affect the actual content of the motion.
So you're gonna rewrite that sentence in the minutes and then we can approve?
As a, yes, shall for signage and lighting, may for landscaping.
And we can look at that and then approve it at the next meeting, or?
No,
You can approve the modification to the minutes now. If somebody wants
trust
to
him.
approve them.
Yeah, I just didn't know
The-
if there was any rush to approve
No.
the minutes.
The only other change is there's no date in the first paragraph. And it says 2022 instead of 23. So it's the June 21st, 2023 meeting.
Great. Do any of you want to move and second that? And
not me. I'm gonna abstain because I was not at that meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Well,
I was there.
yeah, I know, but
I think
I
maybe,
haven't.
Sorry, you didn't ask for the motion.
Can he make the motion?
appointment to hear it because he was here.
Yeah, she was all.
Yeah.
I have to be appointed for minutes,
No, no,
No.
you were appointed
Because
to hear
technically
this
you're not
case.
allowed to vote, but in
not for
this,
cases, I thought.
You were
Yeah,
appointed,
I didn't know.
you were appointed to hear both
Yeah.
applications, so
Yeah.
you can make the motion.
I make it.
and I can second.
Yes. Okay, so the motion to approve the minutes as modified. was made by was made by Tom and seconded by Tim. All in favor of approving the minutes for June 21st? I usually don't call the roll for minutes, just signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and are,
I'm gonna
Okay.
abstain as well.
okay, and abstentions, who is
I'll
abstaining?
abstain as well.
Jordan, Nora, and Dan abstain. Okay, we're almost done. We need to organize ourselves, which means appointing a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. So I will hear nominations for chair at this point.
I would nominate Maya. for
Second,
Chair.
second.
Are there any other nominations?
Can I ask if you're interested in being chair?
Yeah, I'll be chair for one more year.
Because this
And then
caught me off guard. I didn't know we were doing organization.
And then I'm going off the board, so this will be my swan song.
Okay.
Or at least, and then maybe I'll come back, but maybe not. Are there nominations for vice chair? I would nominate Nora Dissinger.
Second.
There's. And nominations for clerk.
Brian.
Brian Bannon.
Okay, I think that was Michael and seconded by Nora. So we have a slate. Are there any other nominations for any of these offices? I should say that.
And we have a chair amongst the applicants.
Is clerk normally?
I'm
Brian,
just kidding.
okay.
Wasn't even
Yeah.
considered.
Clerk is never a board member.
No,
Okay, just trying to learn the new board
yeah,
traditions.
yeah. Brian is the clerk.
Yes.
You could appoint somebody from the board, but create some complications because the minutes have to be posted quickly and appeals go to the clerk.
I wouldn't
and then have to be-
propose that at all. I just,
Mhm.
it was not a piece of information I had, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Are you interested?
Yep.
Just checking.
Good job.
I mean, I'm more than happy to
right.
nominate you.
Written 8 words.
Publish that.
so we have a slate of Maya Hasagawa for chair, Nora Dissinger for vice chair, and Brian Bannon for clerk. And I think we can vote on them all as one. So I think everybody can vote, including the alternates on the organization.
I think that's totally fine.
So all in favor, please signify by saying aye. And
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
okay, so we have officers and it is 8.
I'd love to give a couple quick ideas since this agenda item's administrative matters and new business.
Okay.
Okay, sometimes we get draft decisions and sometimes we don't. I'm wondering if that's just kind of before a meeting and I find them helpful. I know we add conditions and things during the meetings, but because have some of you actually seen the final written decision document that the applicant gets?
I haven't, yeah.
That the chair signs. So this is like a draft version of what it looks like with some of what I guess staff, I don't know if my consults on this too, but the chair consults, but it's like serving up to us what some of the likely key findings are and possible conditions.
Yeah, I'll get back to that, Tom. I've been kind of managing a grant and it's been sucking up time, but I think if you're right, I think that is better practice. If the board wants, we can also circulate the final signed draft or this.
Final signed document if
decision.
people want to see it.
I mean, it helps me to
No, I mean, it's.
see a bunch of wording and just know, it's really good for me.
I mean, I would say when possible, right?
No, I've always found it very helpful to have your proposed findings showing up ahead of time. It really does help as far as giving us a clue as to I mean, you guys know the rules better than we do anyways. I mean,
Well, we have new
I'll
rules.
prioritize that. I felt that Steve's memos are really comprehensive and I find them very helpful, but we can certainly do both and.
I think it's been a question of time
yeah,
recently.
Yeah,
no,
So,
it's my wish list, I guess.
no, that's.
so
it's
we can,
just more that I would
If
concur that
possible,
it's
when
very helpful.
possible.
When you do find the time to do it, it's appreciated.
I'll make it a priority and do it.
Thank you.
Now, the second thing I have, unfortunately, is maybe another slight ask of staff, but I feel like sometimes we've come across applicants and we say, have you seen this document that we saw in preparation for this meeting? They're like, what are you talking about? I didn't see that. I know they can log into the website with supporting docs and almost always that's updated and has everything, but if they can be directed to it at least, so that way they're caught up and they know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I do send out an email blast to everybody, including the applicants. And I think I did that yesterday.
Oh.
And it includes the link to the.
On the agenda, on the bottom of the agenda document.
it included everything.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
But they don't.
It's just a matter of them
But-
reading everything. and clicking
Yeah,
links,
they don't
Being
always.
thorough. Okay.
But I mean, I mean, an awful lot of this stuff, they figure they put the work into getting the
The
application.
application, yeah.
And after that, they're done and
Yeah.
get a
Until they
decision.
show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and in my experience,
You know, it
it's
says it right there in bold, application materials are available at this. link.
Brattleboro in general is much more forgiving as far as when application material can be submitted. In my experience, most of when I had an engineering company, you had to have all your ducks in a row,
Yeah.
3 weeks before the so that it was all done. You've submitted everything. You've reviewed it with the zoning administrator, you've signed off on everything, and before it got warm.
Well, that's actually another thing that I've seen some boards adopt, maybe not 3 weeks before, but if applicants give something, midday on Wednesday,
We've tried.
so,
We have tried to do that.
but still they don't see it and they give
You
things.
guys can, whenever that happens, if you feel it's material, it's entirely fine to continue it to the next meeting.
We have continued,
We did
Does that,
today.
like today.
Yeah, so functionally, when an engineering firm or large major site plan is being done, they really do have to have a complete application or we're just not going to deal with it. We had a situation today where a small applicant not an engineering firm was putting in an application. And in that case, coming before the board and seeing, is it enough? Can they explain it in enough detail for you folks to approve it? Or do they have to develop it further and come back? You know, it's kind of being accommodating to people who don't have professional representation.
Right.
It might take longer, it's more work for everybody, but you know, again, it's trying to meet people where they are.
Yeah, it's hard. My brother-in-law is chair of the Development Review Board in Marlboro.
Mm.
And I told him we required at least professionally drawn plans now, and he said, "You do?"
They still accept napkins.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still accept. I just drew this little picture on this piece of paper, but he
I wanna
was
do
gonna
that.
get them, he was gonna get them to change it, I think, because it was driving the board crazy.
Coffee stain
It's
is
always
the
tough,
setback.
you know, this like that stuff really does cost money.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you don't want to
Yeah.
put more burden on people, but
You could always, accept what's given and then just feel free to say, this isn't legible
Yeah,
or good enough.
right, and then it takes them another
Yeah.
month.
Right.
So,
It's just a delay.
Can I just give extra shout out to Steve's work, especially tonight on the accessory dwelling?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
I mean, everything you
Yeah.
provided so far that I've seen has been really
Yeah,
That's
helpful.
good.
Thank you.
that was a good catch.
I was thinking in a way, way back.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how we could improve.
Yeah, because I kept looking for a health variance and I couldn't find one anyplace. So
So we're gonna adjourn?
anyway,
Adjourned.
it is 8:55 and we are adjourned.